Hey y'all, I'm a video editor and have launched a podcast to discuss the state of the television industry and the current work landscape with colleagues. We producers of nonfiction, unscripted TV used to be industriously employed, editing footage, managing egos, and incorporating network feedback while hunkered down in dimly lit rooms, somehow producing countless hours of captivating, impactful content. But then everything changed. It appears as though the industry collapsed overnight, leaving a ton of my supremely talented and creative peers struggling financially and barely hanging on. With so many of my coworkers in dire straits, I thought I'd reach out and ask a few how it's been going and what they think is next. My hope is that what they have to say helps others figure out what's going on. So, thanks for watching and welcome to Behind the Carnival Barkers. An irreverent behind-the-scenes podcast that interviews the craftspeople who make unscripted television. Hosted by me, Amy Peters, who is a New York-based Emmy Award-winning editor and producer of nonfiction content.
This show is supported by KizzleKit. Make your party a hit with KizzleKit. Please shop for your fancy lifestyle accessories at kizzlekit.com. That's www.kizzlekit.com.
I'm here at the coffee shop to meet up with fellow editor, colleague Timothy Hedden.
Oh my God, not so close.
Who's been in nonfiction for many years. He's the reason for my success and success of many shows, The Housewives, Mob Wives, All the Wives, all the shows you'd recognize.
I can't believe that I'm B-roll.
I know, right?
Girl.
How you doing?
I mean, not good.
And he's brilliant. But like a lot of us since COVID, since the strikes, things haven't picked up for a lot of us. So I'm here to catch up with him for the podcast. Taped in Chelsea, New York City.
I am responsible for one of the most iconic Housewives of Atlanta episodes. I'm the Gone with the Wind fabulous episode editor.
What?
So, which I love, I love that when people know it. It's so good. Like, I remember editing it and it was just, like, I could have put the raw footage on and it would have been amazing. Like, those women were just giving reality TV gold sound bites, so.
One of the things I want to do in this podcast is unpack exactly how we do our job. Can you just sort of walk me through your day on a show like that?
Yeah, I mean, you come in and, turn everything on and set everything up, and then you go get coffee, and a couple of editors come into your suite, or you go into another editor's suite, then you bitch about everything that happened, and then probably around 11 o'clock you get busy. And the thing was, starting time was not important, because if you had to work, like, I don't know one editor back in the day that would say no to, like, sometimes you have to work till midnight. And there was nothing you could do, because you're responsible for an episode and you're responsible for the episode. And this is what has to be done. And if it has to go to the network tonight because they pushed up a date, then that's what had to be done. So, it was just something more to bitch about the next day. But I think all of us were so dedicated to the craft of editing, and I don't remember ever working with anybody who didn't love it. We all loved it so much. Everybody loved it. And for me, I was excited to make television. Like, it really excited me to make television. The reason I got Gone with the Wind Fabulous episode is because the producer I was working with was so bad that I demanded to be put on another episode, and it was the next episode. And so that's what it was. But 30-minute string outs, 40-minute string outs, and then I go to her desk and she's looking at, People magazine, what this person looked like before plastic surgery, and I'm like, You could have cut, like, I can't go through 30 minutes of the show. Like, you give me a 7, how long was it? Like, at least an 11-minute string out for a 3-minute scene. Scene. I don't want any more than that. So.
Can you back up and explain to me what the producer does? You just said the word string out. Maybe people don't know the process.
So a producer is the one who goes through all of the footage, which is a horrible job, but that's the job. So they go through all the footage, they mark it up. So in case the network says, did she say this or did this happen? And then they cut it down to what should be, a workable string, no more than 15 minutes.
A string is
a string out of all the footage, because they're giving you what the scene should be, and then it's your job to cut it down to first you do 6 minutes, then you go through it with them, and then you cut it down to 4, and then as it goes, it slowly goes down to about 3 minutes.
So basically, the camera crew, the field crew would shoot maybe 30 minutes to an hour of footage that you would put in the lap of this post-producer, specifically a post-story producer. And when you're talking about a story producer being good or bad at their job, what did that mean for the editor? In reality television specifically.
In reality television, a lot of the story is made up in post, because in the field, sometimes the field producer can't get what they are expected to get because the talent won't give it or whatever, but the network is sold an idea, so that's what they want. So it's up to the post-producer and the editor to make all that happen. So a good post-producer knows how to craft a story and knows how to cut it down for the editor. It's a business where every day, you think you're going in to cut a scene, but if someone is behind, or there are notes on an episode that need to be done that you haven't even touched, you have to sort of jump on that. So it's just always best to have your stuff done, and that would entail having a really good producer. You're a team, and you have to work really well together. So.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of quote-unquote bad producers, as you know. I personally think the complaining process is therapy and not so much actual complaining. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, where it's like, we complain, ha ha ha, but we love it.
Yeah.
It's part of our problem-solving process.
I mean, I just feel like we couldn't fit into society. Like, we couldn't fit into a 9-to-5 job. So this is what we did. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, we couldn't mix with Gen Pop. We just had to make our own stuff. And, we're artists, basically. And somebody asked me that a couple weeks ago. They were like, wasn't editing an art form? And I feel like editing reality TV in itself is an art form, because of all the crafting we have to do, whether it's, making someone say something they didn't say, or making it look like they're somewhere else. When you're working on a legacy show, you have to stick to, the network wants it to look the same. So you really don't, it's not art. That's not the art part. You can't be creative.
It's funny because I had the opposite problem, where they were like, cut a B-roll sequence like the Kardashians, but then they didn't shoot the B-roll that way.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, and they were so frustrated with the editor.
It's always the editor's fault. And the reality is, sometimes the field doesn't get it. The last show I worked on was, the shooting just gets so bad. And the first company I worked for was Banyan Productions in Philadelphia. They're not in business anymore. But they really sort of had the best system. The producer would go into the field and shoot the show. So they were 2 weeks in the field. Then they would come back for a week, and they would cut the scene, and then they would sit in the edit for 2 weeks. And then they would go back out on a new show. So the reason that is such a brilliant idea is because if the producer is sitting in an edit with the editor, and the editor's like, I can't cut this together. I need something to cover it. I need B-roll. You have to get a cutaway. Someone's hands, a glass, a cup of coffee, something. And so you learn how to shoot better.
COVID, I'm interested in, where were you when it happened? Where did you work from home? And then what it looked like when you got back to work?
So I was working on Black Ink at the time. And when they shut down the city, I had 2 episodes left to edit. So I edited from home. And, you remember, there was always whispers of working remotely, but none of the production companies wanted to invest in that infrastructure because they didn't know how to do it. And COVID sort of forced that hand. So they figured it out, and now everybody works remote. And the difference between pre-COVID working and post-COVID working is when we left the office at 7 o'clock, we could turn our phones off. But now, because you're home, if you want, and your executive producers live all over the world. Well, I worked on a show where my executive producer lived in Australia, 14 hours ahead of us. So we're just starting to wind down, and she's like, okay, let's go, let's do it's just like, girl, I can't fucking stay here till 6 o'clock in the morning and wait for you. It's ridiculous. So I feel like you can't escape it now when you're working, because you can't turn your phone off, because everybody knows that you are available. You should be working on this show, so you have to be available 24 hours a day, basically. But I feel like COVID, I thought it would be great working from home, but I really do miss the creative. I miss having a problem with an edit and going into your room and saying, hey, I have this. How would you cover this? How would you cut this? How would you solve this problem? And then, people would help you solve the problem. I don't know. I miss sort of the camaraderie of other creatives, working in the same place. So as much as I hated the stupid lunchtime microwave bullshit banter, like, what are you having? Chicken. Oh, you had chicken yesterday. I hated that, but I sort of miss it. I wouldn't mind going in 2 or 3 days a week, but I'd have to have a job to do it, so.
And Slack definitely doesn't cut
Oh my God, I can't. So
I come off worse in Slack than in real life, if you can imagine.
Your dry wit doesn't transfer.
It just doesn't.
It sounds like cuntiness.
Oh, yeah. Can you maybe more concisely explain the idea of what was filmed is not the same as what was shot? I don't know why. I just feel like that needs to be articulated, because I worked on a show where people were like, the audience, the layperson is like, oh, they're not even Amish. It's like, they are. But what you're responding to, I think, is the way they're edited together. Right. You don't believe it for some reason. So what is that?
I mean, I was asked I was working on a show, and there was a trip to Atlantic City for a bachelor party. And one of the cast members was coming over to look at pictures of the bachelor party. But I had to make it into a scene where the main character invites this guy to the bachelor party, and he says that he cannot come, which was not shot. So I cut this scene together. I was searching, it takes days to find it and to craft it. And the owner of the production company came in and he's like, I need more. And I'm like, there's no more. There wasn't even that. So, and of course we can, take interviews and, verite and switch words around in a different direction, or make them say something a little more devious or a little more, bitchy.
And the reaction shot.
Well, the reaction shots are just I remember I worked on Mob Wives, and then I went to do an HGTV show. I had to do a tease, coming up on Tiny House Nation or whatever the hell it was. And, so I had the husband and wife sort of, bickering with each other. And then I had a shot of the realtor up against the wall, looking like this at something happened outside, and he raised his eyebrows. So I had cut it to where it was a very tense moment. And I put a boom at, when you go to the realtor's face, a sound effect. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then the executive producer came in and she's like, this isn't really the tone of the show. We don't want to scare people. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I come from Mob Wives. I thought because I wasn't using a gunshot boom that I was toning it down, but like I totally get the vibe of the show. So it's like, as we have such power with a music track, with sound effects, with things that people don't even hear, and of course reaction shots. If somebody is yawning, and you have another person talking about something, you can make it seem like she's so bored, and then get an interview of her saying, oh, she bores the shit out of you know what I mean. You can, and it's simply that.
Or the story changes. The network wants the scene from episode 12 to go into the first episode because when they got the cut they liked it so much, and they're like, you have to do so much work.
Right, and that would involve recutting the whole story. So then if you take something from episode 1 and put it in episode 12, the whole story arc changes. So you have to go back and change almost every episode to match, because this drama that you're putting and taking from episode 1 isn't happening until episode 12. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 all talk about this drama, and you can't talk about it anymore. So I worked on a show where somebody's mother had been in trouble with the law and nobody knew it. And she was reality TV. Like she was a B character, but like it was somebody's mother, and she gave the best sound bites. And it was just like everybody loved her. And then we found out she had been in trouble with the law, and we had to cut her out completely. Not only did we have to recut every scene for the season, we had to go back because they didn't want any traces of this woman. We had to go back and cut her out of locked episodes that had already aired. But of course we're going to rerun, so they had to cut her out of that. It was a lot of work because we built the whole show with this woman in almost every scene that we could because she was so good. She was really funny, and she cried. She was amazing. She
gave you everything.
She gave you everything you would want for a good reality show. She was sympathetic and funny and intelligent when she spoke. Like she was gold. And to cut her out of everything, it was just really.
So it's like every scene interacting with her is one level. Every scene referencing her is another level.
Right.
But then
phone calls. We had to get somebody else to fake the phone calls, whatever. It was just so much work.
On top of the timing of the episode, you have 46 minutes of content for an hour, let's say, and depending on the clock. And then you cut out entire scenes. You guys, what'd y'all do? Have to go shoot?
You had to chop scenes up. So what we did was then you have to make other scenes fatter because you had to make up for it. At this point, I'm telling you, the show was airing. So it was like it was quick surgery for an entire season. So it was just a lot of work. And again, that's the job. That's what you have to do.
And it's not like the schedule gets fatter to help you.
Nobody cares.
Because they have
That's the
obligations.
Thing. It's like we would bitch and bitch and bitch, but it didn't matter because you can bitch all you want. The show still has to kind of show.
Yeah.
So after a while, it's just like there's a little bitch session in the morning, but like you can't take the whole middle of your day and like complain about what you're asked to do because you have to fucking do it.
Yeah.
The show needs to be cut. That's your job. It's just a horrible pain in the butt. So.
Yeah. Do you really miss the hassle and the emotional abuse and the wage theft?
I miss the paycheck is what I miss. But that's the thing. It's like back in the day before this generation came to work, like we didn't get paid for holidays and you had to work a holiday. If July 4th was on a Tuesday, you had to work on a Tuesday. And if you didn't work, you got paid. There were no sick days, Amy. Do you remember that? There were no sick days. If you didn't come in, you didn't get paid.
Yeah.
And people screamed at you. One of my executive producers, this was how long ago it was, 25 years ago, threw a VHS tape at my head. So it's just like, and then the degrading, the screaming, you're a fucking idiot. How the fuck do you expect that? What you call this, whatever. And it's just like, and you chuck it. You went back to your desk and said, God, I'm so fucking stupid, whatever. But after a while, it's like, you get these notes from like an EP or a network executive, and they're like, this isn't funny. And I'm like, it's so subjective, like everything, but the network executives sometimes are really abusive, as are the production company owners or your EP, who's not even, doesn't even own the company. But I mean, that's why we bitched every morning. We come in and say, look at this note I got or whatever. I got a note twice from the network that said, the first one was the editor asleep at his keyboard? And then 2 weeks later, did a monkey edit this? And my producer was so upset. And I was like, dude, this is the best show I've ever seen. This is the best reality show. It is amazing. Do not worry I don't care what they say. It's so good. And it was the second highest rated show.
The editor has a huge role in making that. What is it about the editor's role in a show like that?
It's a huge responsibility, even if the show is not iconic. Like, if you're responsible for an episode, you're responsible for an episode. And I feel like that has changed now. The editor would cut stuff, and then we would hand it off. We would string together the whole episode, and then you give it to the lead editor, and then they are the ones who cut everything down and craft everything. Mm. But back in the day, it was like, we got it the first day. We got all the string outs, and then we locked the show. 6 weeks later. So, that's another thing too. There's no time anymore. The schedules are so compressed. I mean, when I first started in this industry, it was like 3 months to rough cut. 3 months to rough cut. Like now, I remember with this show, it was like we got a scene in on a Monday and it had to go out Monday night in a fine cut. So it's like you have to make the scene as perfect as possible, which means it has to go through, the showrunner and the executive producer of the company for notes. So it's a hugely long day. And then the network gives it back to you on Wednesday, and they're like, I don't like this scene, take it out. I think we were spoiled because of how it used to be, and how it is now is completely different. It's more of a sweatshop mentality now, and it's more of a, it's just more of a, mush, work, churn it out.
If you don't mind, let's pivot to the state of the industry now.
Are you talking about it's the entire entertainment industry, but of course we're concerned about reality TV because that is our livelihood. And the state of reality television is so, I don't even recognize it. It's not anything like it used to be. There are no new shows being ordered. As I said, if they do order them, it's a very small episode order, and they don't need a team of, how many editors were we at a time? Like 8 or 9 editors, 8 or 9 producers, working in tandem, going from episode to episode. Like I would have episode 1, episode 5, episode 9, episode 8, and now they only have 4 episodes. You only need 2 editors and 2 producers. You don't need a whole team. So it's really frightening, and everyone was hoping that 2024 would be good, and then the thing was like, let's stay alive till 2025, and now 2025 is half over and there's nothing. I called a production company. I wrote to this woman that I know, and I was like, hey, I just finished this show for Peacock and I'm looking for my next job. And she's like, we might have something at the end of the summer. And then the head of post messaged me the same day, and he's like, we won't have anything until fall. And I'm like, fall? Like, it's June. Like, what am I supposed to do until November? It's just crazy. It's not that it's comforting that everyone's out of work, but it's comforting to know that, you're not being targeted because you suck. It's like nobody's working.
Because that's a lot of our identity, right? Is doing a good job delivering on your shit, doing it with grace.
Yeah. We took the abuse for so many years, and we obviously loved it. Everyone looks at us like we're especially before when we didn't have sick days, had to work through holidays, didn't get overtime. Remember, no overtime? Like you had to work 15 hours, you didn't get paid for it. And people thought we were crazy, and we probably were.
We come up in this world where it's like, you just do your job. And if you complain, you don't need to be there.
They would fire you on the spot.
They would. Oh, I've been fired or not brought back or blacklisted, whatever, for all of the spectrum of reasons. And one of the most upsetting was being really effing good, putting up with stuff, having a producer that the male editors were able to get out of working with her. I was forced to deal with it. I worked 9-10 months, did it. Then I was booked through February and we delivered our stuff. So they took weeks away from my booking and into before the holiday, before Christmas. And January is a dry month. So I was like, I need to work. So I booked something that meant me leaving 6 days early. And I kid you not, anytime I ask anybody about what happened, they're like, oh, you quit, didn't you? And that somehow put me on their shit list. And it's like, 6 days is not quitting after 10 months of busting my ass.
Right. Yeah.
Like, wow, dude. We could probably trauma talk for a lot, but you mentioned what you thought was next. What's next?
For me or for the business?
Yes.
For me, I don't know. I want to go back to editing. I worked recently on a show for Peacock after a year and a half of not working, and I forgot how much I loved it. I forgot how much I enjoyed putting it all together, and I had a great time, and they seemed to like me. But there's no work. That they don't have another show, so I wouldn't mind working like before. I would do Housewives was like a 6-month gig, a 7-month gig. I wouldn't mind that, and then taking a couple months off and then going back and doing it every year, but it just doesn't seem to happen. And I feel like legacy shows are really the only thing that are happening now. And I miss it so much. I'm at the point now where it's like I'm starting to go through my savings and through my retirement, and I'm just like, what am I going to do? I just turned 61. So it's like I have 1 year until I can collect Social Security. Is that what I'm going to have to do at 62? Am I going to be out of work for a whole nother year? It's really, really frightening to not have a net. There's nothing you can do. It's not like somebody's pissed off at us and not hiring us because they're mad at us because we fucked up a show or something. There's no work. And you're literally helpless. And at my age, I don't I wrote these 2 novels and I'm trying to sell them, but it's like, getting an agent, a literary agent, is its own feat. It's like you can't. I thought everybody would jump at a reality TV murder mystery, and they're all like, not for me. And I'm like, really? Written by a fucking reality TV editor? You don't want this? I don't know. I was shocked when all of that happened. So I'm sort of getting a double dose of reality now, where it's like I took some time off to chase my creative dream, thinking that I'd be able to get something when I returned. And when I was ready to go back to work, there was no work to go back to. So I wrote a second novel. So, and now I'm writing articles and, essays and short stories. So I'm trying to keep myself busy that way, but there's no money in it, I'm trying to I want to start dog walking. I don't know what else to do, It's like, what else can we do?
Ugh. When did you start to detect the slowdown of work? I personally was pre-COVID, definitely 2018, 19. What do you think?
No, for me, it was because after COVID, there was I was getting 2 calls a day, 3 calls a day to come for work. There was so much work. But as I wrote in my Huffington Post article about the crumbling state of reality TV, the money was mismanaged. Everybody wanted a streaming platform because Netflix netted $5 billion at the end of 2020. And so all of the network executives were like, we want streaming. So that's why there was such so many jobs after COVID, because they were they decided to make all these streaming channels and they needed content. So we were all in high demand. But then they're these huge companies that own major networks like ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. They're used to millions of dollars a day, an hour in ad sales. So now they have, 6 channels. Only one of them brings in ad sales, and the other ones bring in $9.95 a month. But they're all 24-hour-a-day channels. They all need content, and the money is running out, and that's what's happening. The people who own the big corporations were saying that they lost billions of dollars. So it's like the money, nobody thought through, like what's going to happen. Or maybe let's do 1 streaming channel instead of 6 streaming channels. And the thing is, they all own so much content that they really don't need to produce stuff anymore. And when they do, like, remember we used to get 26 episode orders? Now they order 5 episodes, 6 episodes. So it's really sort of frightening because we all, I don't know, not that we all gave our life, but like we all really gave it our all to make content and make really good TV as best we could. And now there's just nothing to do. I remember like a year ago, this guy called me, and he's one of the best editors I know. And he's like, I'm just calling for it. I was like, if you are calling me for work, like, there's no hope. Like, I certainly don't have anything,
They can't figure out, it appears, how to make money from content. Meanwhile, content is king, and people voraciously consume it, it seems. And that's what I hate about capitalists, where they're supposed to figure out how to make money. Like, that's their only job.
Right.
It's like, how do you get YouTube eyeballs or people's watching your show on YouTube, whatever it is?
Yeah.
And they're not incentivized financially or any way to actually solve it. They can take their time. There's no urgency for the craftspeople who are waiting for them to figure shit out. I think they want the next Mr. Beast. So how do you do the...
I mean, I can't imagine there's going to be another Mr. Beast he's 45 million followers. 45 million. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
But he's also an extreme. You want to do those challenges that he does? They're actually insane.
Yeah.
So, but that's what everybody loves. I also think too, just really quickly, like we grew up on sitcoms. Right? So when reality TV hatched, we were all like, oh my God, this is amazing. Remember, like, the real world was just like cameras set up in an apartment, and if you watch the first season of Survivor, it's so boring. And as it grew, the appetite of the American people grew. They wanted more. They wanted more drama. They wanted more conflict. And so we were there to provide it. And the main demographic now grew up on reality TV. So they've seen the table flips. They've seen people, throwing drinks in their face. And I just feel like they don't, like, it's not that they're sick of it, but it's ingrained in them, just like, the Brady Bunch is for us or whatever, and I just feel like they're a little sick of it. Like, they don't need to be rabid about Housewives. Their moms watched Housewives their whole life. So I don't know what the answer is. My niece is a huge Housewives fan. She's 23 years younger than me, but her daughter is a YouTuber, so it's like, it's completely different, and the daughter's 13, so it's I don't know what the answer is, but I thought we were in a sort of bulletproof industry, and here we are, everyone's scrambling as the industry pivots and finds its new way, and we don't know what it's going to be. So, and look, I'm a gay man, I don't have children, there are people who have children in college and homes and mortgages, and it's like, not that my pain is any less than theirs, but like, someone has 3 kids in college and a mortgage in a suburban house, and they're out of work. It's like that's devastating. Like, if I feel like a loser and I have a rent stabilized apartment and a condo in Fort Lauderdale that's almost paid off, it's like, these men and women are, they can't provide for their families. Do we expect sympathy from the public? I don't know, but it's like, we fucking entertained billions of people for 10 years, 20 years. And, now it's all over and nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. The network executives are still running, they're still networked. owner of production companies are trying to figure it out too, but they all have jobs. And here we are, the people who actually made the content, shit out of luck. So it's really scary.
I think that reality TV started out as being the redheaded stepchild, right? We are born from a world where the writers were on strike. They needed a cheap way to fill cable out. So it's not even network, the top 5 or 4 network hours that we were working on. We were doing like these distant, far away channels, which I guess is the next evolution is what YouTube is to terrestrial television. So there's all along the way, all these ways in which we were put down, disrespected, all this stuff, and we persevered anyway. And it's almost like this is the last body blow to what we did.
But our content is also disposable. It's like we work so hard on it, and then once it airs, it's
nobody goes back and
cares.
watches.
It's like unwrapping a Christmas present. The paper goes in the trash, and you don't think about the paper anymore. But before Christmas, all you do is stare at that paper. You just
Right.
want, and then once it's open, it's over. So how is this industry, reality TV, going to pivot to a 15-minute format or a 30-minute format? Because I really do feel like I helped create. We helped create reality TV, hour-long footage format. And now it's like you watch an hour show and you're like, I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, where are we? I pause it to see how many minutes are left. So it's like we have even been programmed. The older generation have been programmed that everything has to be quick. So I don't know. That's where it's coming from.
Thank you for talking to me and seeing me in real life, and doing this show and being on my inaugural.
I'm so excited. I love you, Amy Peters.
This deep dive with Tim has been a journey into the heart of unscripted television. Reflecting on our combined experiences truly underscores the immense dedication we poured into our work. We often operated under significant pressure and, frankly, in sometimes dubious circumstances. Looking back, there's a bittersweet sentiment about those challenging times. We were, in essence, artists, sculpting stories from raw footage and achieving what seemed impossible, despite frequently being told we were not enough. It's clear that the landscape has shifted dramatically and the future of our craft feels uncertain. But what remains, and what I hope this podcast can capture, is the incredible talent and resilience of the people behind the scenes. We're not just editors, we're storytellers, problem solvers, and yes, a little bit crazy for loving what we do. We'd like to thank Tim for chatting with me today. You can find his musings at heddenwrites.com. That's HEDDENWRITES.com. A link to his article published in the Huffington Post is in the show notes. Title music is provided by DJ Williams, whose work you can find on YouTube at DJW Music. Post-production services are provided by Audio Photo Synthesis. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Kizzle-Kit. To shop for your very own fancy lifestyle accessories, go to www.kizzlekit.com. That's KIZZLEKIT.com. Next week on Behind the Carnival Barkers, I was able to pull editor Tara Brochon away from work long enough to have a talk about her feelings on where the industry is heading. Please follow us on social media for schedule, coming up guests, and other programming notes and updates. Sign up for our newsletter at carnivalbarkers.substack.com, and please hit the like button if you enjoyed this conversation.